A quarter of a century of service. That was the prospect of a Roman citizen who decided to join the army. The only way he could leave before that time was to be buried on a funeral pyre or crippled. Of these 25 years, the war occupied only part of the time. The rest of the soldier spent in the camp, which was his home. And where there was home, there was everyday life and all the problems associated with this, not the most visible and glorious side of the life of an imperial servant. Including the question, how to earn and on what to spend full Roman denarii. The first and main article of income of soldiers of the early Roman Empire was a military salary. Julius Caesar tried to introduce the allowance on a regular basis, but this practice was really established under Emperor Octavian Augustus. During the late reign of Augustus, a legionary earned 225 denarii per year. Even from the time of the Republic, each such coin weighed 4.5 grams of silver. This level of payments remained in the Roman army for about 100 years, until the Emperor Domitian, in connection with inflation and rising prices, did not increase an 83-year legionary salary to 300 denarii. The next increase in wages soldiers of Rome again had to wait for more than a century, and realized it Emperor Septimius Severus in 193. It is safe to say that legionary pay was an exceptionally stable thing. Emperors understood the importance of these payments, and therefore for the issuance of money there was its own ceremony, emphasizing the importance of legionaries for the empire. There are known cases when emperors personally made payments and distributions, thus once again reminding who the soldiers serve and who pays them. Payments were initially made 3 times a year. They tried to time them to some significant events, such as the birthday of the ruling emperor. Since Domitian increased the soldiers' wages, they were paid 4 times a year. Actually, this increase became the 4th issue in the future. It should be said at once that the Roman army did not suffer from social equality. Officers and centurions earned much more than the average soldier. There was also a gradation among the rank and file. It divided them into those who received regular pay, half pay, double pay, and even triple pay. There were also differences in pay according to the type of unit. Minus the praetorians and the emperor's personal guard, the legionary had the highest salary among the infantry. Next came the horsemen of the auxiliary alley, and only then the infantrymen of the auxiliary troops. Although allowances were the main source of soldiers' income, they were not the only source. There were various payments and bonuses. For example, reimbursements for forage, shoe nails, shoes, and cloaks. Another example of an extraordinary payment is from the will of Emperor Octavian Augustus, in which he specified all common soldiers and the amount of money to be paid to them. Emperors often held endowments at the beginning of their reigns, but it was not necessarily money. Instead, soldiers could receive new clothes, wine, or various performances were organized for them. During a war in enemy territory, a soldier could make a profit by looting. Roman military law allowed it. It was believed that everything a Roman soldier took from the enemy became his property from the point of view of natural law. By custom, the booty from a city taken by storm belonged to the soldiers, and from the surrendered at the mercy of the victor, the commander. Numerous written and pictorial evidences support this fact. For example, the columns of Trajan and Marcus Aurelius. They depict soldiers looting the city and taking people into slavery. After taking Jerusalem by storm, the troops of Emperor Titus removed so much gold from the city that its value fell several times. Emperors and generals not only followed the custom of plunder, they encouraged it. Emperor Septimius Severus, in the course of his war with Parthia, promised to give their capital city to be plundered. The procedure of plundering in the Roman army was distinguished by clearness and organization. It came to the point that if during the invasion the enemy retreated, the Romans could start harvesting his fields. Thus the Roman soldiers received additional food, and the enemy was deprived of them. Rome's army in a hostile country can be compared to a locust that consumes everything in its path. It was a scorched earth tactic of the enemy. There were several types of retirement, but we will focus on the one called Henesta. There were several types of retirement, but we will focus on the one called Henesta. It concerned soldiers who served the entire term and left the army at the end of it. There were two types of payments for this resignation: monetary and agrarian, usually formalized by the issuance of a land grant. In the early years of the reign of Octavian Augustus, land was distributed to retired soldiers in Italy or the old Roman colonies. Later, this practice was gradually abandoned, giving soldiers land directly in the colonies where they served. Dismissed soldiers received money from a special treasury. Its revenues came from inheritance and sales taxes. Initially, the dismissed received both land and a sum of money in the amount of 3,000 denarii to a legionary and 5,000 to a praetorian. Later the amount of money in the payment increased, and land allotments decreased, until under Emperor Hadrian the land was not given out at all. Another part of the severance pay is the issuance of money that the legionary had accumulated during the service, but which he was forced for one reason or another to save. These were the sources from which the Roman soldier's income was formed. On what needs he spent his money? First, the soldier had to reimburse the cost of clothing, weapons, armor and equipment, which he was entitled to when he entered the service. Their cost was deducted from the amount of allowance. The state also did not provide the legionary with a camping tent. Further, throughout the service, the maintenance of equipment in working condition was the soldier's responsibility. If a legionary was promoted, for example, to centurion, the armor corresponding to his new rank, he had to buy himself. And the cost of it, by the way, usually exceeded the annual income of the centurion. Part of the soldier's money went to buy from the centurion a leave of absence or exemption from any outfit. Some of his blood denarii soldier ate, fed in the army good, but the variety of the diet did not spoil. He had to take care of the menu himself, and the soldier also spent money on recreation and entertainment. Almost every major camp of legionaries was a town, which housed numerous pubs, brothels, places for theater or musical performances. Important buildings at the camp were Roman baths and amphitheaters. These buildings were necessarily built near each stationary camp. Gladiatorial fights were so popular with the soldiers that it is known that there were 2 amphitheaters near the camp. There is nothing to say about baths. This way of spending time was to the liking of any Roman. Thus, the legion camp, in fact, was a large market with goods and services for every taste. And its consumers, Roman soldiers, willingly left their money there. By the way, if we remember the exact figures, it was a lot of money.